All right.
We're live. Started.
All right. Hello and welcome to Wi-Fi Optional, the weekly tech show where we talk tech so you don't have to. This is episode 25, recorded Tuesday, May 17th, 2016. I'm Rukshan Wijaratna, and with me is Mr. Jason Wadicott, as always, through the interwebs. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, sir. And hello to everybody. How are you today?
I'm doing well, and as always, everything was the camera's not switching. It seems like everything was working perfect while we were on here. What, for an hour or so?
Yep.
Talking about the show, everything was switching fine, and now we start going live, and cameras aren't switching. So it's I'm the manual camera operator for tonight. So
Cameraman Joe, go get him.
there's always something with we use Google for the show, Hangouts, and then Google Docs, but I don't know. Lately, it's been kind of a hit and miss thing.
Yeah, I've been working on a few different options to make things better, but there's a few steps involved. So hopefully we can get there and have some more production value to the show, but the line.
Yeah. All right. So let's not keep people waiting. Let's roll on with.
Our first article today is Apple reporting of a potential iTunes bug that deletes songs, and then says later in a different article that the downloads won't be gone completely shortly here. Last week brought on sporadic reports of iTunes users losing playlists or even entire music libraries from iTunes and their computers. The issue seemingly linked with Apple Music, and in most cases, the users lost their entire collection. Told imore.com. In an extremely small number of cases, users have reported that music files that were saved on their computer were removed without their permission. We're taking parts very seriously, and we know how important music is to our customers, and our teams are focused on identifying the cause. We've not been able to reproduce this issue. However, we are releasing update to iTunes next week, which includes additional safeguards. In an early related story, the digitalmusicnews.com is reporting that Apple plans to completely terminate, quote unquote, downloaded music from iTunes within a year within a 2-year timetable. Sources say from the article that Apple is to their belief that paid music downloads are going to be simply the music in the near future. It has been predicted that this segment will decline to a very sparse $600 million in revenue by 2019, but this is also down from the $3.9 billion with a B that it was back in 2012. The key piece of this, as I said before, is decline in download music is the rise in streaming services like Apple's own Apple Music. The latest projections have streaming revenues for Apple surpassing the downloads high water mark by 2020. So an interesting article in two sets. One, they say, hey, we know there's an issue. We can't find a problem, but we're releasing a patch, which is kind of counterintuitive. And two is this all linked to them slowly wanting to get rid of these downloads?
So how are they going to release this patch to fix a problem that they don't know is a problem? I have a feeling that either they're not really telling us what they know, or they may have a hunch of what could be happening, and they're going to go, oh, hey, maybe we need to patch this. But before the show, when you brought along this article, and I was reading through the forums, and it's kind of a mixed bag of comments. There's the very pro on one side, you have the very pro Apple crowd, the fans, and then on the other side they're going, well, it's iTunes, deal with it type thing. So there's a very fine divide. You have the two ends of the spectrum that are fighting, and then the second portion of the show, the article, I should say, I am not actually surprised that they decided to do this. I have a feeling that this would have been something that Steve Jobs, notorious for something, coming up with something completely off the wall, out of the box thinking. But to me, at least, getting rid of downloads, okay, fine, that's where we need to go. But um, this goes hand in hand with a lot of other things. You can't stream unless you have a fairly decent internet connection. And then, so is this going to be another trigger for mobile operators like the Sprints, the AT&Ts, the Verizons, and the T-Mobiles in the world to go, hey, there's more data being produced. Here's another opportunity for us to start hitting the customers for unlimited data.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's what's held back the streaming service to this point is not everybody can stream all the time, every time. I think that's where downloads kind of have their own play, and things like Google Music, where you can upload your own albums to the service and kind of have a mix of streaming and your own stuff is kind of where we've gone. But I do believe that I think you're right with it. I think either this is Apple saying, hey, we know that eventually. Not net neutrality, but something in the sense where internet will be more accessible and cheaper is down the line, or B, Steve Jobs' attitude of we'll just do what we want to do, and sometimes we'll cut off our own arm to save a leg. But I guess we'll see what happens here in the next coming years for this one.
And also, this might be a trigger for the hardware manufacturers. Streaming is extremely taxing on the battery life of a device. So is this kind of a preemptive strike at 5G that supposedly has amazing battery life and download speeds that far surpasses what we have out now? So I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see where things go. But I'm not surprised that Apple actually came out and said it.
Not at all.
No. And then the next story: Alphabet unveils a program for carpooling via the app Waze, fraying ties with Uber. Alphabet on Monday, Alphabet happens to be the parent company for Google, unveiled a pilot program that will enable several thousand San Francisco area workers to hitch rides to or from work with users of Alphabet's popular Waze navigation app. Riders will pay drivers 54 cents for every mile, and Alphabet won't take a cut during the pilot. The program signals Alphabet is likely to use Waze as a way into increasingly popular world of ride-sharing, pitting it more directly against Uber, the world's most valuable private venture capital-backed company, which dominates ride-sharing in the U.S. Alphabet and Uber have been allies. Alphabet's Google Ventures invested $250 million in Uber in 2013 and included prompts to book Uber rides in its Google Maps app. Alphabet Senior Vice President for Corporate Development David Drummond is on Uber's board. So it's kind of an interesting twist where Google's got deep pockets. They really don't have a problem with investing money or money for that matter. But it's an interesting twist where they go in and they invest all this money in Uber, and now they're going to go, oh, you know what? We're going to start our own. We're going to start our own product because we already have these little component, the modules that they need, so to speak, to start the business. They've already got Waze, they've got Maps, so they have the infrastructure built in. So we're just going to put everything together, and we're going to come up with our own product. So.
Yeah, I think that aspect, but it's also kind of a step back from Uber. I know a lot of the troubles Uber has is with the employees and the not employees and all these other legality things involved, where this is more of kind of putting two people together, which is kind of what Uber is supposed to be in the first place. And the first thing I think of is I want to get hooked up in this service and then like be waiting at a street corner with like a bloody axe and be like, here's my 54 cents a mile, like give me a ride to Walmart or something, and see how this random person that shows up to pick me up for 54 cents a mile actually reacts to it. But in all seriousness, it's I think it's good. Their purchase of Waze and things like that was kind of an odd thing with their mapping speed, but now that you can kind of see where they're going with this, it kind of makes sense to not be maybe a direct competitor to Uber, but a similar service, more kind of how Google operates.
I can also see Google using the information that they get from all these rides that people take, and they're gonna data mine all that information, and they're gonna come up with, oh, hey, here's this new algorithm that we created that is going to tell you, males in between the age of the 30 to 32 travel from here to here every Tuesday, something along those lines. And
Who don't
normally
have
with Google,
cars or whoever has cars,
right, exactly. Normally, if Google does something, there's always some kind of a marketing or a data mining back into that. But like you said, it's certainly really cool to find out that Google's coming up with something like this. But um, I think one of the things that Uber, one of the reasons that they are so good is they filled a niche void that uh, and they did it really well. And Google actually has the computing backend behind it. So it's interesting how it's interesting to see how Google's gonna come in and they're gonna take on this landscape and go, okay, we're gonna come in with, we're the 10,000 pound gorilla. We're gonna come in and we're gonna let's shake things up. So, but we'll have to keep watching, see how it turns out.
exactly. Staying in the car mind frame here, we have a story from Tesla. It sounds like it's sending its owner's detailed logs after yes, after we've talked about before the Model S's and things. They have a self parking feature. And basically what happened is, following a recent incident which a Tesla Model S rammed into the back of a trailer, resulting in a shattered windshield on the nearly $70,000 electric car, the manufacturer and car owner are embroiled in a technology tussle to determine who is at fault. Tesla said the car owner, identified as Jared Overton of Utah, the car's summon feature, which is beta testing, is not intended for use on public roads. Overton denied deploying the autonomous feature, telling a local TV station that he merely exited the vehicle and started chatting with the passerby who was admiring his flashy car. Not so fast, said Tesla. The vehicle's behavior was the result of the driver's own actions. It insisted in a May 6th letter to Overton, listing explicit detail of the actions performed by the car. Said the vehicle's logs confirmed that the automatic summon feature was initiated by a double press of the gear selector stock button, shifting from drive to park and requesting the summon activation. The driver was alerted of the summon activation, and the audible chime and a pop message on the center touchscreen was displayed. At this time, the driver had the opportunity to cancel it, the action on the center touchscreen. Oh, excuse me. I lost my spot. Cancel button was not clicked by the driver. In the next second, the brake pedal was released, and 2 seconds later, the driver exited the vehicle. 3 seconds after that, the driver's door was closed, and another 3 seconds later, summon activated persuade to the driver to double press the activation request. Approximately 5 minutes, 16 seconds after the summon activated, the driver's side front door was opened again. So basically what this is saying is so the B is apparently they can see what you're doing at all times.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to. That's two things that come to mind. First, it's actually really great that they can pull this information, because if something were to happen and the driver was unable to respond, or whatever the case may be, a tragic accident, the fact that they do have a black box of sort within the vehicle is actually cool, that you can pull the information and find out what's going on. But at the same time, it's also kind of creepy that it's kind of sitting there watching exactly what you do. And it's interesting. It certainly would be interesting to see if there's anything in the fine print when you buy a vehicle that says, hey, we're going to capture the last 20 hours of usage of the vehicle, and this is what we're gonna do with it. Now, if they're going to use that information to enhance, or if the vehicle is going to use that information and then run it through an algorithm and go, oh, this is how this person drives, I am going to adapt myself based on that. That's something different. But if they're going to, turn around and use it against the driver, or something like in this case, where obviously it comes down to, a matter of litigation. But the other thing is, so who's at fault if something like this happens? Is it the is it Tesla that made the car with because of faulty programming? Is it the car owner, or is it the who pays the bill? And I don't know if the insurance companies are ready, or if they actually have a clause behind this.
Well, I think to answer your first question, it's got to be in their EULA of some, of you taking ownership of the car or something, or whatever terms of service that, this is this feature specifically is a beta feature. You shouldn't be using it in public. And B, that, anything that you use in the automatic side of things with the car is, under your, adult supervision, let's say. So in the end, I think the car person, because Tesla can't be there, Tesla can't be, on top of everything. So I think it has to fall on the ownership. But the interesting thing is the way that he described it is, this passerby, I want to look at his flashy car. What I'm guessing happened is, he tried to show the passerby the flashy feature, and it just went south, and now he's trying to save himself a buck by blaming it on Tesla.
Yeah, and I'm not too well. I don't own a Tesla, and I don't know if you do, Jason, but the
I have three of them feature, actually.
Okay, I figured. The summon feature from the videos that I've watched and the information that I've read, it heavily relies on the sensors around the vehicle. Like, you can actually push the summon button while the car is actually in the garage, and it will actually open up the garage door and then back your vehicle. So obviously there's some kind of sensor on the back of it or not some kind, there's the sensor on the back of the vehicle obviously detects when the garage door is open. So to me, while this is backing up, did those sensors not function, that it hit something, or maybe those sensors get automatically disabled after the garage door gets open. Regardless, it's still a beta feature, so it'd be interesting to see if they fine tune it for the public release. So we'll keep watching. From ground transportation to air transportation, FAA tests FBI drone detection system at JFK Airport. In an effort to avoid collisions and other drone-related incidents, the Federal Aviation Administration recently tested an FBI drone detection system at New York's JFK International Airport. 5 different rotorcraft and fixed-wing UAS, unmanned aerial, I think it's, I gotta check, participated in the evaluations, and about 40 separate tests took place. The FAA said in a statement, the agency didn't elaborate how the tests went, but several other government organizations were on hand, including Department of Homeland Security and the Justice Department. The FAA is required by law to conduct such tests in order to come up with an adequate drone detection system that will work on all types of airports. Earlier this year, it teamed with CACI International and DHS at the Atlantic City International Airport to test a solution that employs radio frequency sensors at strategic locations around an airport in high prominent locations. When the sensors detect frequencies unmanned aircraft typically use, it triangulates the signal and determines the location of both the UAS and the operator, according to the FAA. Sounds like they're using audio triangulation. I know they use a variant of this in some heavy crime neighborhoods where they use audio sensors to detect gunshots, and if somebody fires a gun, they'll use multiple sensors to see which one heard it the loudest and at what decibel level, and then they can use that to kind of triangulate it. Sounds like they're using something very similar to that, but I know there is some push from the FAA because of a potential people are just crazy. Some people are just flying them right by main airports, even though before you fly, you're supposed to look at a map and there's a lot of no-fly zones, but some people are just crazy.
Yeah, and UAS is unmanned aerial systems.
Aerial systems.
Anything, yes. Anything that controls basically was talking about. So that being said, yeah, that's the problem here is the thing is, it really hasn't been that many cases of people actually causing damage. There was that one where they said a drone hit it, but they couldn't prove anything, and they're a month back. And but it just takes one, like you said, one crazy to really ruin it for everybody else. And this is kind of cool.
If I could stop you for a second, that one that you just talked about that happened last week, they said it was not real. It was false.
Yeah, exactly. So it seems like I'm two ways in this. I completely agree where they're coming from. I think this is something that need to be controlled. It's like trying to find an analogy that works for it, but it's something that we didn't have 10 years. It just kind of flew onto the scene, and now all of a sudden it's everywhere, and I think it can cause a lot of damage. It hasn't yet, so I feel like they're just trying to find, it's almost like the San Bernardino case. This is a horrible analogy, but it's like where they're trying to find a reason to make legislation on things and make rules on things. But in the same sense, I think it's very important. And I know a lot of drone manufacturers, big ones like DJI and stuff, Chinese manufacturers, but are putting it in their firmware where you physically can't fly, GPS wise in those areas, which will help. But the first thing I picture with this is like a little mini like missile silo in the middle of the airport, and they track these things, and then like this door opens up and a little tiny missile flies out and like takes the drone down.
It down.
Yeah, but it's overall, it like you said, it's to stop the crazies out there from, they might not be malicious, but they're just
They're
too ignorant to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't think there's, well, you never know. I guess most of them don't have any malicious intent, but I think it's just, to them, it's a cool thing. Hey, look, I'm flying this right next to a 747, but you have to take into consideration the drastic things that could happen. If that thing gets sucked into an engine, it's just going to be ridiculous.
Over.
And so exactly like you said, this is new, and they need to somehow curb it. So I guess they're gonna use whatever method they can come up with to try and narrow it down.
Kind of staying on the same the path we've been on with the automakers and drones and self-flying and driving cars and things. Automakers are about to juice up the electrical systems to add tech. So we kind of talked about it with battery life, with devices and phones and downloads and things, but now it looks like they're going to be upping the voltage on some electric systems in cars. So it's one thing to add more computers and sensors to cars to make them fuel thrifty, capable of driving themselves safer, or even get systems. Another thing to figure out how to handle the extra juice those systems require. The challenge by the auto industry is likely to be answered by a new breed of beefed up electrical systems. Auto supplier Delphi is showing off its new 48-volt electric system, saying the technology is crucial for complying with emissions and fuel economy standards and copying with the growing electrical needs of today's vehicles, the electrical juice would be added in addition to the already 12-volt batteries in cars. Vehicles are starting to get the 48 Bentleys, new what is that word? I completely went blank on that one. I have one, and which controls computers and mechanisms that give it remarkably smooth ride over almost any surface. So long story short is we're going from 12 volts in a car to now we're going to 60 volts, which is scary and also kind of cool in the same sense.
It is, but I can see where these guys are going. The new Chrysler 200, which is not a luxury car. It's just a mid-sized sedan for just a family vehicle. The new Chrysler 200, it's all drive-by-wire. Everything, including your shift. You just have a knob that you basically spin that goes from park to reverse to neutral to drive. That's it. There's no actual shift. So there's a lot of things that are consuming power, and then
servos and things like that. Yeah,
a lot of servos, and now you're adding backup cameras, and you got navigation. You have a lot of the newer vehicles have built-in 3G or 4G, not 3G, 4G. You have the new Kia K900 has electric actuators on the door, so if you don't have to even slam the door shut. You can just close your door and it sucks it in on all four doors. And you have climate control front and back now. You have reclining seats. It's just next to impossible the what they can pack in. And to me at least, I saw a massive shift in domestic automobiles ever since the bailout. The bailout happened, and then they said, you know what, we're going to pack anything and everything we can into these vehicles so people will buy it, because people are buying Japanese vehicles because they had, you know, a lot of bells and whistles built into it, and now they're packing just about anything you can. You know, LEDs at least are not as power consuming, but there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of servos, and then like the Bentayga, it has the suspension automatically adjusts based on, you know, the ride and the road conditions. There's a lot happening in the back, but like you said, you're sitting on on an electric chair basically, and hope to God you don't you know, this thing doesn't short circuit, or don't drive. If there's even 2 inches of water, just stay the heck away.
Yeah, and it's you know, a analogy or a similar thing is, you know, we've talked about before. I have my 3D printer that I got a few months back, and the original printer I have runs off normally 12 volts, 6 amps. Now you add in extra. I think I have an extra fan of mine, and I have a heated bed, which is basically, you know, just dumping electricity at a aluminum plate, so it's killing a lot. Now I'm up to a 12 volt, 20 amp system. So it's something very similar like that. You know, the more and more features, electrical features you add on, you need to have more power. I mean, there's ways of circuitry wise to boost that voltage, but in the end, then you cause heat, you cause power loss, you cause all that kind of stuff. So the only real way to do it is to have a more powerful system like this.
Yeah, and cars are getting smarter, they're getting more advanced, and then you know, I'm afraid to say that they're even getting to the point where you know, the automobile owners, the car owners, can't really do anything with them anymore. You know, you almost have to take it into a service center even to do something simple like an oil change. You can't do a lot anymore at home. I know a friend of mine just bought a brand new Hyundai Genesis. You can't do an oil change unless you take the skid plate off of the bottom to get to the drain plug. So, you know, stuff like that. But
Cheat codes: up, down, up, down.
yep, yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Our deep dive article today: Google's Chirp may try to drown out Amazon's Echo. Google is rumored to develop a direct competitor to Amazon's Echo, codenamed Chirp. The device, which might resemble the OnHub router, would incorporate its Google Now voice assistant technology. Google likely will launch the product later this year, according to a Wednesday Recode article that debunked, actually today's Recode article that debunked, or actually last Wednesday, sorry, reports suggesting Google would launch the new system at its annual I/O Developer Conference next week. Google likely will preview the system at I/O, as well as reveal some of the emerging technology in its virtual reality market. Google's product likely will function as a complementary hardware device to Google's search engine and other service-oriented apps, such as Maps, Business Solutions, said Charles King, principal analyst at Pundit. If customers queried a Chirp device about pizza delivery, they might be steered towards Google clients or restaurants highly rated by Google users, he told Tech News World. The Amazon Echo has actually been really cool. I know you and we talked about it, and I've been seriously contemplating getting one because it's just because of the really cool functionality. But now Google comes out with this, and actually their I/O Developer Conference is tomorrow, Wednesday, the 18th, I believe. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to come out with, and this actually, depending on the price point, of course, might be a little more attractive, at least to me, than the Amazon Echo, because I am heavily invested in the Google ecosystem. So, you know, something like this would be, but I can seamlessly integrate it, and it actually would work pretty sweet, I would think.
Yeah, and that's I think that's where Google wins on a lot of stuff. Even if they can get close to somebody else's tech, the fact that you don't have to jump a different system goes a long ways. I know like you alluded to, we've talked about the tap and the dot and all the Echo things, and now that they have it even, you know, built into the Fire Sticks and Fire TVs, and with the voice remotes or your phone as a remote. But the hard part about getting into that ecosystem is I don't use Amazon other than for Prime shipping, and that's literally it. So I don't use them for cloud storage. I don't use them for, you know, payments. I don't use them for all this kind of stuff that I use Google for. So you know, like they said, you know, getting led to something that's highly rated by Google, you know, that's kind of it, where, you know, I'm used to getting that kind of stuff or that feedback from Google, and I think that's what will lead me to something like this. Whether it's going to be as good as Amazon, I don't see Google doing something half-assed, but, you know, they've, you know, Amazon's been in the game for a little bit longer, and we'll have to see what happens. But I think you could see this becoming more, you know, like as I alluded to with them getting on the different Amazon devices now, but I see this being more prevalent, or more pervasive, I should say, in devices if Google has a service like this, than on being kind of closed off with their own stuff.
Yeah, the only thing that I kind of wonder, and again, this is all speculation until they actually reveal it, is um, Amazon knows how to integrate their products with their storefront and everything else. You know, like the Kindle, for example. You know, they sold them $50 a piece. I think they're still $50 a piece, but they're locked into the Amazon ecosystem. Which still is the Kindle runs on the Android backbone, but it's pretty well locked down. But then Google, they have a fantastic product, but they seem to, even though they integrate really well, they sometimes do have little hiccups here and there. For example, you know, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, Google Docs works great, but there's always hiccups. And is it because they have too many hands in the cookie jar? They're trying to potentially seamlessly integrate with too many things at the same time, whereas Amazon just goes, we're going to focus on one thing and one thing only, and we're just going to steamroll our way down. I don't know, but I think exactly like you said, people use Amazon for one specific purpose. That's, you know, they have a fantastic Amazon Prime program. They make millions of dollars, and I read an article that they're even going to have their own the Amazon branded vegetables that are good. They're apparently growing them. So, but then Google does one thing great, and that's search, and then, you know, integrating their email and whatnot. So I don't know. I have a feeling that Google might win out, even if it doesn't, even if it does come up with a couple of hiccups. I'm more leaning towards the Chirp product. Check it out, see how it is.
Yeah, and you know, you kind of hinted at it, but Google's always been, this is very similar to the Google Apple, you know, fight, the heyday of the iPhone series. You know, they both came out kind of offering the same thing. Google was more cutting edge. Google integrated with all of its stuff, but in the end, you know, the reason why, you know, I personally, and I know a lot of people use Apple products, is because they just work all the time. Google has little quirks and bugs, but that's also why I like Google products, is because they're cutting edge and you can do a lot of things with them. And I think this is kind of the same, you know, it's kind of parity with that comparison from years ago when the smartphones are coming out. Is you have, you know, Amazon doing it very well, but it's really locked down into kind of what they want you to do, and you have to be in their ecosystem to make it really, really worthwhile. Even down to Alexa doing, you know, only be able to access her own shopping list app. You know, I think that's right. The biggest thing. People love that, but the only thing is they don't want to use the Amazon shopping app or the Alexa shopping app. So it on the head with that is, you know, I think it's gonna be that battle of the cutting edge people and the people that are already bought in the Google system with the people that want something that works better. You know, grandma and grandpa or somebody less tech savvy is going to go with an Echo probably, but somebody that's a little more tech savvy or you know, likes the more cutting edge stuff, the Google, the Chirp product, you know, like, this is all hearsay because we don't know what it's going to be yet, but would probably go with that just because of it being, you know, what it is and what normal Google products are.
Hopefully they'll come up with some cool apps that you can actually use it with, but we'll see. We'll find out tomorrow and
into their apps better than Amazon, than right. Echo does, but
yeah, but we'll find out. Hopefully it'll be, like I said, it'll be at a good price point, and then you know, maybe that might be something we can try out at the show. Hopefully exactly. So, but we'll keep you posted. But that's actually our show for today. Thank you very much for watching, even though the cameras automatically did not switch. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the show. It should be right down here, I believe. Just hit the subscribe button. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We are at Wi-Fi Optional on Twitter. You can also find us on your favorite podcast app. If you can find us on there, rss.wifioptional.com is our feed address. If you have a question, comment, just want to say hi, or if you want to get involved in a live taping, shoot us an email, info@wifioptional.com, or hit us up on Twitter, like I said, at Wi-Fi Optional. And thanks to Purple Planet for the music, purple-planet.com if you want to check them out. And from myself, Rukshan, and Jason, who is screen sharing his new 3D printout, Mr. Darth Vader, I should say Mr. Lord Vader himself. Have a good night.
Have a good one.